What's up, guys, and welcome to the first video of 5-minute muscle talk with yours truly. 5 minutes with me. So let's clarify first what this muscle talk is going to be about. Literally any random topic, exercise, workout, program, anything relative to going into the gym and working out that I think is an interesting topic that I can bring benefit toward you guys. Take it, reel it in, throw it back to you guys. You guys pull some value. That's what the topics are going to be about. This first topic is going to be defending the argument that isolated exercises are better than compound exercises. So let's put 5 minutes on the clock and let's get it started. First, guys, we need to clarify what is a compound exercise and what's an isolated exercise. A compound exercise is something where maybe multiple joints are moving and is a much less stable environment. Let's use legs as our example in this video. Any kind of free weight squat or lunge, we can consider some kind of a compound exercise. What is an isolated exercise? An isolated exercise, even though the term is very generic and I don't love it, the way we're going to clarify it is that it is an exercise that has more stability. So some kind of back pad or chest pad, in the case of legs, like maybe a seated leg curl, and multiple times or most times, one joint is moving at a time while the other ones are fixed in place. Why on earth would a single joint isolated exercise be better than a compound exercise? Aren't squats, in the example of legs, the best leg builder you absolutely can do? Well, maybe, but for a lot of you guys out there, the majority of regular people going to the gym, that's who I'm talking to. You have to realize that we're trying to isolate one single tissue a lot of times. You go into the gym and you want to train just quads at one time. You go in and you want to train just hamstrings at one time. So in order to do so, you have to be very wired into that actual muscle group. And many times, we're not as coordinated at keeping tension inside of that muscle group as we think that we can. In order to get a little bit better at that, the best way that we can do that is to isolate, find environments in which we can make the exercise a little less complex, a little less things to manage, and be able to negate tension where we want it to go. In this case, this is why I'm making the argument that isolated exercises are probably a better place to start. You may actually want to start your workouts in this place. When we're talking about putting tissue on and we're making some kind of drastic transformation in general, we have to be applying as much overwhelming stimulus at all times as possible. That means being efficient in where we're putting that stimulus. If I'm using the example of the legs and I'm trying to train my quads, for instance, and I'm not very good at figuring out how do I make my quads be the most dominant body part in this exercise? And I have my hips breaking first, and I have my back bowing and extending, and a lot of things are moving. I'm trying to manage my core, I'm trying to manage my spine, I'm trying to manage this load on the bar, and I have a drop off in my performance. That's a lot of bad things going on in the beginning that we don't want to have to deal with when we're trying to be as efficient as possible. Why not simplify things to your brain so you just don't have to think as much? So instead of starting with the squat, maybe we put that in at the end and we do it at a much lower intensity and just kind of work on technique. However, when we're in the beginning of our workout, we still want to get a lot of effort and output just in an easier way. So maybe we go into something like the leg extension, or even for argument's sake, we go into something like the leg press, which is a much smaller range of motion. Now, if we go back to the leg extension part and I start my actual sets of the beginning of my workout, in the leg extension, I have just literally my knee joint moving through space and my quads are getting into a pretty vulnerable position with them being completely contracted. In that completely shortened contraction, a lot of times from a coordination standpoint, yes, we may be weaker and yes, our performance may drop off faster. However, we will feel those contractions a lot better. You'll be able to realize this is what it's like to have effort and isolation in my quads, and I can carry over that same kind of feel and mindset and intensity into something like my squat. You don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what kind of internal tension you're looking for out of your quads, then how in the heck are you supposed to know what you're supposed to be getting out of something like a quad dominant barbell, yoke bar, front squat, things of that nature? It's a very complex exercise. It's a compound exercise that is a great movement because it can be loaded very, very heavily, but the load has to be going to the right place. That's where my argument's at. If you're trying to find your quads, if you're trying to keep effort high, let's take a step back. Let's go to the fundamentals. Let's isolate between two joints. In this case, the hips and the knees, and something like the leg extension. I don't have to think. I just pin myself, I extend my knee, and I go, oh man, there's my quads. So that is your 5-minute muscle talk with me, Bryce. I hope that was informative. There's going to be more of these. These are going to be very simple but random topics. And tune in for the next one, guys.